All right, so anytime you want to start, I think we're good to go. All right, my name's Robin Newell, and I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about resumes and cover letters. And the reason a resume format is so important is because that is your possible first introduction to a company that you might want to work for. It doesn't have to be a library, it can be any company. But you want your resume to stand out from the other resumes that they're receiving. So that doesn't mean that it should be decorated up with colored paper, like brilliant orange or neon yellow, or have Superman logos all around it. It means it should look really professional, it should look really crisp, and it should look like you're really serious about wanting to work there. The average hiring manager, and this is in smaller companies, because I think a lot of the larger companies now use the software that just reads through the resumes and looks for keywords, but a lot of the hiring managers spend less than 20 seconds looking at a resume. So they're basically pulling that piece of paper out and just going straight down it and looking for keywords or whether you meet the qualifications of the job. There's 3 different kinds of resume formats that you can look at. The first one is reverse chronological, which means it's all timeline based. So basically what you're doing is you're telling the person who's looking at the resume what you've been doing in your career. And you always start with what you're doing right now first and then work backwards. One important thing to think about as you're doing this timeline is if it doesn't relate in any way to the job you're applying for, it's okay to leave it off. There may be a concern about why there's a gap there. So if you are concerned about that, you can add it on there. But for instance, if you worked in a library for a while and then decided that you were going to go work as a legal secretary for 2 years, and then you went back to libraries, you might not want to put that you were a legal secretary, because it really doesn't have anything to do with your library position. So reverse chronological, everybody used it. It was a global type of resume format, and it was easy to read, easy to understand. But then one day it was, wouldn't it be a lot more interesting if people actually put on their resume not just what they had been doing, but some of the skills that they had. So the functional resume came into being. And the functional resume specifically targets the job that you're going after. So if you know you're going after a library job, you want to make sure that you highlight all the skills and abilities you have that relate to that position. So basically you're working off the job description. You're going to take that job description, you're going to look at that job description, and you're going to say, what do I have to offer this company? So these are great for people who have started and stopped their careers, who might be going back into the workplace, or making a significant career change. And people just entering the job market, especially students, can benefit from a functional resume, because you may not have a timeline to work off of. You may have been a student and not worked anywhere else. So that's functional resume. So we talked about reverse chronological, and we've talked about functional resumes. And then one day somebody said, well, wouldn't it be even more fun if we combined them both? So out of that came the combination resume format. And that takes the chronological and the functional and puts them both together. And they're great for people who are looking to make a career change and move from one industry to another. And in this case, I would say like moving from public library to academic library, or from academic library to special libraries. It's also a great format for highlighting well-developed skills and talents that are relevant to a specific position. So this is the best resume format for somebody who's considered to be a master in their profession. So this would be a format that you might use later on in your career instead of coming into a career. So that said, 3 different types of resumes. And the next thing we're going to talk about is how that resume should be organized. I'm not going to talk about CVs. I'm just going to talk about resumes. That's what I'm most familiar with. So I won't talk about CVs. So when I'm looking at a resume, the first thing I want to see at the top is the header. And in that header, I want to see your name at the top. And then I want to see your address. And then I want to see telephone numbers, email, phone number. I want to see how I can contact you. It is extremely important to have somebody else look at your resume, of course, once you finish it, but make sure that contact information is correct, because I've had people put, just do a typo and not have a phone number or an email address correct to contact them. So in that header should be your contact information. The second thing that I like to see is an objective statement. I want to know why you're sending me that resume. I want to know what you're going to do with your career. And that's when I talk to people who are in school, or I talk to master's people, and I'll do this when I come to SLIM. I always say, well, what do you want to do when you get finished? What do you want to do with your master's? Are you going to be academic? Are you going to be public? Do you know? So I would like to see an objective statement about why you're applying to our library. You know, do you want to be a children's librarian? Do you want to be a reference librarian? What is your object? What's your goal in applying for the position at our library? Just a sentence or two. Doesn't need to be a paragraph. I just want you to see one sentence. And here's where I kind of divert from the regular path. I always like to see education first on a resume. After the objective statement, I like to see that first. And sometimes I think that's because most of the people that taught me about resumes are academic librarians, and I was really happy to hear that CVs, the education, is on the top. So I have a suspicion that when people were teaching me about resumes, they were academic librarians, and the education appears first. There's a reason I like that. I like to be able to see, does the person have the educational criteria that we're looking for to meet this position? And we receive a lot of resumes, and some of them will, it helps us weed it out. If I know it's master's required, and you only have a bachelor's, or you only have a high school, your resume is not going to go into that pile. So it just helps the person, helps the hiring person. The next thing I would like to see is I would like to see your experience and qualifications. So this is where the reverse chronological comes. Again, that's the most common, but it depends on the company that's hiring you. This is where you talk about your work history, and you highlight not only who you work for, but what you did for them as well. It doesn't need to be huge paragraphs. It can be bulleted. I want to see who you worked for. I want to see the time that you worked for them, and then a couple of bullets underneath each one that tells me, what did you do for that company or that library? Be sure to include your job titles as well in that list, and that should go back. I would say if you have 10 years, that's good, but it should go back at least 5 years if you're just getting out of school. But if you've been around libraries for 10 years, absolutely put it in there. But usually anything longer than 10 years, unless it's significant to the job position, it doesn't necessarily need to be on the resume. Then the next section would be skills and abilities. And this is your place where you can shine, where you can put in things like, I received these awards, I have presented at these conferences, I volunteer. I want you to think about what is going to make you noticeable to that person who's reading that resume, what's going to stick out. And it's going to depend on the type of library that you're working for. If you're working in a special library where you're doing reference work, it's not going to be the same as if you're a children's librarian, or if you're an academic librarian working with students. So really try to tailor your skills and abilities to the position that you're applying for. include anything like if you're a dual language person, that's where you would add that. If you have specific computer skills, sometimes it's nice in public library land to know what ILS you've had experience with, so we know whether it'll be additional training. Anything that would set you apart and show us that you'd be a really good fit for us. So that would be the skills and abilities. In days past, the next part would be your references, but what they really encourage you to do now is to put, to go ahead and get 3 professional references and put those on a separate sheet with the same header, with all your information, the word references, and then list your 3 references. And please, please, please do not put anybody on that list that you have not called and said, may I please use you as a reference. It's a professional courtesy, and you don't want to take for granted the people that you're putting on that list. So make sure you call them and let them know that you're thinking about, get their permission to put them on that list. So you don't have to send the reference sheet with the resume. Sometimes it's helpful, and again, it's going to depend on where you're at and who you're applying for. If it's a small community and you think that those people on that reference list might make a difference in you getting that position, I wouldn't hesitate to send it at all. So again, you're just going to have to use some kind of judgment skills there, whether to send the resume or the references with the resume. Traditionally, I've always asked for a cover letter and a resume and 3 references. And those 3 things tell me 3 different things. A cover letter tells me, can you communicate in written communication? Do you know how a paragraph is? Do you know how to sell yourself? The resume shows me your experience, and the references will show me who do you know and how do you know them. So those 3 things, to me, are kind of the triad of hiring. How long should a resume be? It should be at least the front page, front and back if you've been in the field for a while, but no more than 2 pages. And we had some discussion this morning about what should the font look like, what should the margins look like, what should the paper look like. So if you're doing a resume, your paper should be on 24-pound paper, which is heavier than copy paper. Copy paper is thin, it's made to go through those copy machines lickety-split. So you want to go to an office supply store and buy some 24-pound paper in white, cream, or gray. And then you want to find a laser printer, not an inkjet, but a laser printer that will print really nicely onto that paper. I actually have a list of fonts that you can use, and I've got a handout with those fonts on it, but you want to stick to sans serif fonts. They print up nicely. You can read them easily, and a lot of these times, especially if you're applying for a larger company, there's going to be an electronic reading of your resume, so you don't want to send weird fonts that computer is not going to be able to read. So you want something very crisp and very clear. So stick to fonts like Arial, Verdana, Century Gothic, Gill Sans MT, but never Comic Sans. Never, ever, ever. In fact, if you're a librarian, never Comic Sans unless you work in children's. But, and not for resume, but just never use Comic Sans. Lucinda Sans and Lucida Sans in Tahoma. Helvetica can also be used. It's another good font, but try to stick to those fonts. I know it sounds silly to think about fonts, but what you're trying to do is make that person that's reading your resume have a pleasant experience as they're going down that. 1-inch margins all the way around. What we don't like to see is a whole bunch of stuff squished in little tiny font. So your font should be no smaller than 11 and no larger than 12.5. So try to keep it right in there. single space within your sections, and then a double space between the header and other sections of the content. Oh, and always 8.5 by 11 paper. I didn't say that, but sometimes you forget that people don't know what they don't know. So I would never print it up on a legal page and say, oh, I can just do one. I can do one page. It'll just be a legal page instead. 8.5 by 11 will do it. Some things to avoid on your resume, and I talked a little bit about this already, is spelling and grammar. Have somebody else check your resume for you, and have a third person if you aren't sure. If you need somebody to check a resume or to work with you or mentor you, Kansas Library Association has a mentor group that they'd be willing to work with any student to help. And you just have to get on their website and contact those individuals. Sometimes it's nice to have somebody who's not your friend, somebody that you don't know, read your resume, because a lot of times they can point things out because they don't know you. So spelling and grammar mistakes and typos, those are probably the biggest ones. Words like there and there that spell check don't catch, trip people up sometimes. But if you're hiring for a detailed position and you've got spelling mistakes, that's going to be kind of a red flag. Not targeting your resume, and again, this is when you go and pull a template off the internet and plug some words in and send it to all the libraries at the same time. So you want to target that resume to that specific job description. And then remember, you're one candidate out of a whole lot of candidates out there. So if you're submitting a resume that's 2 or 3 pages long, it's not organized, it's rambling, it'll just get trashed. So keep your resume targeted, clear, concise, and lean. Don't pad it. Personal information on a resume, you should avoid. You shouldn't put your religious affiliations, social security numbers, personal social media contact. And I know that that was discussed this morning, is that some people were putting their personal social media content on there. It's really not, you really don't have to do that because we're gonna look anyway. And we're librarians, we can find you. So that is not necessary to put that on there. Shouldn't put your birthday on it or your age, your marital status or anything else that's personal. That has no place on your resume. This is just the facts about your work experience. No photos, no headshots, no pictures of your dog, nothing like that. All the potential employer needs to know is what your name is, what you want to do, what you've done, and your skills and abilities. So kind of just the facts, please. And you shouldn't on a resume or a cover letter ask for any salary information. That can come at a later time. That doesn't mean that you can't find that out while you're applying for the position, but you shouldn't ask for it in the cover letter. So that's all I have on resumes. I've got some stuff on cover letters. Okay. Do you want me to go ahead and just whip right into that?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions on resumes first?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
I think I'm consider myself fortunate that I have a lot more than 3 people that would give me an excellent reference, I believe. Would you think it would be appropriate to include more than 3 references, or should I just pick 3 to include?
I think if the person asks, if the job description posting says cover letter, application, 3 references, you should say 3 references. Okay. And they should be your cream of your crop.
Okay.
And those 3 references, does it matter if they're all at the same place?
No, but I think diversity is good. I don't think that, and again, I think it depends on what the place is. If you're working for a university and those are your contact people, then I can see where that would work for you. If you're in a smaller public library, they were all from people you worked with, probably not. But yeah, that's a really good question. You want the people that are gonna speak well of you.
Before I worked at an international nonprofit, which
Sure.
doesn't necessarily have anything to do with library work, so.
But that's still, it doesn't have to do, it doesn't necessarily, your reference doesn't necessarily have to do with library work as long as it's a professional reference. You just don't want to put your sister down or your best friend. It's not a personal reference, it's a professional reference. So it could be somebody in library land, or it could be somebody in the business world. It could be the chamber president. It could be somebody like that. So it doesn't necessarily have to just be in library land. It can be outside of library land. And again, that would, depending on the position, it would depend on who those references might be. Because I've used different references for different positions depending on what I was looking at. Makes sense?
I called references when I was in HR, and the questions that I was asking were things like, how is this person to work with? What are some of their strengths? What are things they might struggle more with? So it's more of a general questions about how it is to work with this person than specific questions about the nature of the job, if that makes sense.
I had an HR person tell me recently that references don't mean anything anymore. And it was in the context of talking about a person that they had been wanting to get rid of. And the only way they could do that was to give a good reference. And he just kept on emphasizing that references don't mean anything anymore.
Well, I'll tell you, I did have people give negative references.
Isn't there some type of liability or something
There is,
related to that?
More and more companies are saying we don't give references, we'll
Mhm.
confirm dates of employment, and that's all we'll do.
Right.
Yeah, kind of gets into the weeds of HR.
I mean, I suppose if you have a reference from somebody that's well known or that is known in your field, that's a good thing for you.
I was gonna
And
ask,
it's different
does the
with
status
professors.
matter?
Right. But if they don't happen to know any of them.
But I think it's different calling and asking for a reference of somewhere you worked and calling and asking for a professional reference, because I have not worked with any of my professional references in a job situation. Mine have always been through the Nebraska Library Association or those types, or professors, that type of thing.
Mhm.
So most of my references aren't necessarily past employers. Not that I couldn't use those, but most of the people that know me well have worked outside of the workplace. So that's those people appear on the application. Those workplace people appear on the application in our case. So that's why we ask for 3 professional references, because those are usually people that they haven't worked with. But I agree. As far as the references not being useful, I know there's liability, and I think one of the biggest questions is, would you hire this person again? And that's always a kicker question. And sometimes we get yes, and sometimes we get no. But I know that there's liability now for individuals. So I'm more prone to actually call the professional references who might know them outside their workplace than to call the companies that they work with. And again, it's a small world in library land. We all know other people that know other people that know other people. So it's pretty amazing sometimes how small that network gets to be.
I had one other question. How important are the dates related to the different job positions and say with your education and things like that? The reason I ask is because I'm getting older and I'm actually looking at the possibility of age discrimination because, when I originally graduated from college was a long time ago, and it doesn't look so great because I took 10 years off to be a mom and stuff like that. And so if I have 1980 on the resume.
Sure.
That if I were hiring, I would probably look towards a younger person in a lot of situations, because you don't want to lose them to retirement right away or something like that. So
I think
that's what I'm
I think
considering.
that's a great HR question
Mhm.
that I don't know that I have the knowledge to answer. But if you don't put it on the resume, when you walk in for the interview, or when I talk to you on the phone to call you for the interview, it's going to be obvious that you're not 25. So is that age discrimination? I don't know.
No, but when you look at a resume and you see that this person is approaching retirement, you might never get to the interview stage. That's what I'm concerned
What I've
about.
read is, instead of putting years, you could just put like 3 years or 4 years. Instead of dates, just show how many years you worked
Okay.
in each position, and like don't put your graduation dates for college if you don't want to. Just so that's one way to kind of combat that.
Right. Okay.
That would be an unconscious bias problem, that people might not be aware that they're biased against someone who's been graduated longer. So I think that's a fair concern.
And you might want to just put bachelor's and the school, master's and the school, and not put a date there.
Yeah, you don't need to.
But when you start putting your work history, just put the last 10 years. Which is really what they're looking for. They're looking to see what you've done for the last 10 years. Now, if you've only worked in one position for the last 10 years, then you might want to, then you might want to add some of it. But yeah, good question. You feel like we answered it?
Yes.
Do you need more? Okay, because that's kind of an HR situation, and I'm not an HR. In fact, we're consulting with an HR person out of Johnson County right now because we needed more information.
If you know how to make me younger, I'd like that.
Maybe we would all
like that.
Okay, so back to cover letter. Any more questions about the resume? Thank you very much. So you only get one chance to make a good impression. You only get one chance, and that's the cover letter. And again, that's why, just like the resume, it should be printed on 24-bound paper. It should match your resume paper. It should all those papers should look the same. Do you know how long it takes when somebody meets you for you to make an impression on that person? How long?
7 seconds.
7 seconds. Okay, right, 7 seconds. So you walk up to somebody and it's 7 seconds. So think about that cover letter. That cover letter is going to be even probably less than the resume. So you want to make a really good impression with that cover letter. Is this someone, and when you read that cover letter, you want to say, is this someone that you want to talk with? Is this someone that you're interested in? So you want to put stuff in that cover letter that will pique that person's interest. Does it sound like you're going to be approachable? Do you sound interesting? So those are some of the things that you want to think about going into writing a cover letter. Now, just with the cover letter, there's a couple of different formats, just like we had a couple of different formats with the resume. The first cover letter format is the paragraph format, and I've got a couple of handouts here. But the paragraph cover letter is pretty simple. The first one is your introductory paragraph, and you tell them who you are and why you're writing them. And you can include things about your areas of expertise, your career goals, and how they align with the company. You want to make that connection in that first paragraph. You want to tell them what position you're specifically applying for, as well as how you heard about it. And this is a great place to put one of those references. Dr. Becky Pascoe, who is the professor at University of Nebraska in Omaha, let me know that this position was open. So that immediately connects you with that person and can make that connection. Your second and third paragraph are all about what skills and knowledge you have that is specific to the job you're applying for and will be bringing with you should they offer you the position. Make sure that whatever you're talking about connects back to that position. It's not the time to repeat your resume. It's not time to list everything that you've done, but you want to use the cover letter to make a connection between who you are and what you've done to what they need. So use those second and third paragraphs to fill that in. And then the final paragraph is your conclusion. You want to wrap up the letter by thanking them for taking the time to read your letter and for considering you for the position. When would be a good time for you to come in and interview? And it may seem forward, but you're really trying to sell yourself. If you really want this position, you're really trying to sell yourself to this company, to this library. So you really want to close the sale. You want to say, when could I hear from you about an interview? And then make sure that you have the contact information up at the top of your cover letter, just like the resume. The header should all look the same. The resume header, cover letter header, and the reference header should all have the same information. So paragraph cover letter is the first one. The second one is the employer-specific needs. So I'd never seen one of these before until I applied for a position, and they sent a letter back and said, we want to know how you, what skills you have that can meet this criteria. So the example that they used was an event planner with 4 years of experience. And so you could say, well, I bring 6 years of event planning to the table, but they were actually asking for specific skill sets in that job posting. So you could go back and then instead of doing the whole paragraph thing, you could just list those skill sets that were in that job posting and say, this is what I can bring to the table. This is what I have. This is how it relates directly. And so it looks actually more like a table than it does paragraphs. And again, you want to, at the end of that, do the same thing, close and ask for when can I expect to hear from you. And the third cover letter is called the shopping list cover letter. And it's kind of a hybrid of the first two of the cover letter formats. You start out with an opening paragraph and you have a closing paragraph, but rather than do the 2-column comparison, you list out exactly what the employer is looking for and respond with your own matching qualifications. So experience. If they're looking for experience, you tell them exactly what type of experience you have. If they say we want somebody with attention to detail, you give a concrete example of a time that you had attention to detail. Ability to remain within budget, ability to work well under pressure, no matter what they ask in the job posting, just list those out, bullet them out, and then respond directly to those. So those are the 3 types of cover letters. There's a lot more information available online, and I will tell you that I've got a lot of this information online, and I hope that you will go online and look for it as well. If you need face-to-face, again, Kansas Library Association has the mentor program. SLIM has instructors and people here on campus that can help you, and it's been my delight to find in library land that you can call people up and just a lot of times say, I need some help with this. And we're a sharing bunch of people. We want people to be successful. We want them to be successful professionally and personally. And there's always been a helping hand, at least in the states that I've worked in, to make people's careers progress. So, thanks. Questions? Anything?